Okay, so have you ever really stopped to think about how a single living cell, and you've got trillions of them, acts like a tiny microscopic gatekeeper? I mean, it has to decide every single second what gets to come inside and what gets the boot. This whole process is absolutely essential for life itself. So the big question is, how on earth does it pull it off? It is definitely not a simple job, right? This little bouncer has to juggle nutrients, waste products, signals from other cells, and even threats, all while keeping that internal environment perfectly balanced. The whole secret, the key to everything, is its front door, the cell membrane. And seriously, let's run with that idea. The cell membrane is the ultimate bouncer. It's got the velvet rope, a super strict guest list, and it single-handedly decides the fate of every single molecule trying to get across the border. Now, even before they can get to the front door, there's a rule. The first rule of this club is, you're too big, you're not getting in. Huge molecules like starches and proteins, they get turned away at the door. They have to be broken down, chopped up into their smaller parts, like glucose and amino acids. Only then, once they're small enough, can they even try to get past the bouncer. So, the fundamental principle that makes all of this work is something called diffusion. The easiest way to think about it is to just imagine a really packed room where everyone just naturally starts to spread out until they're all evenly spaced. That's diffusion. It's this natural movement from a high concentration to a low one, and here's the best part. It doesn't cost the cell any energy at all. It just happens. All right, so our molecules are now small enough. They walk up to the cell membrane, and now they've got two main ways they can get inside, and it really all depends on what kind of molecule they are. Okay, so the first way in is called simple diffusion. This is for the really small, uncharged molecules like oxygen and carbon dioxide. They're so low-key, they can just slip right under the velvet rope, no questions asked. But the bigger or more charged molecules, like glucose, they need a special escort. That's where facilitated diffusion comes in. For them, it's like using a dedicated VIP entrance, a very specific protein channel that personally guides them through the membrane. And these VIP doors, these protein channels, are unbelievably specific. It is literally like the bouncer checking an exact name on the guest list. A channel that's built for glucose will only let glucose through, nothing else. A channel for a certain mineral will only let that mineral through. In this club, there are absolutely no plus ones. All right, so let's shift gears for a second and talk about one very special molecule that kind of plays by its own rules: water. Water is so critical to life that its movement gets its very own name. And that name is osmosis. Now, at its heart, it's still just diffusion, but water has a very specific motivation. It is always drawn to where the party is. And what's the party? Well, it's wherever there's a higher concentration of other dissolved things, what we call solutes, stuff like salt or sugar. Water will always move toward the area that has more solutes. It follows the crowd. So just picture two rooms, right? And they're separated by a wall that only water can get through. If one room has this huge, crowded party going on, that's our side with high solutes. And the other room is almost empty, water is going to flood towards the party. It's trying to dilute the crowd and even things out. This whole idea leads to a really fascinating question. If water is always going to follow the party, what happens to our little cellular club when the party outside is way different from the party inside? Well, the results can be pretty dramatic. This is where the rubber really meets the road. We get to see the real-world consequences of osmosis, where the environment a cell finds itself in can determine whether it thrives, shrivels up, or even bursts apart. Let's break this down. First, a hypertonic solution. Think really salty water. The party is bigger outside the cell, so all the water rushes out and the poor cell shrinks. Next, an isotonic solution. Here, the party is perfectly balanced inside and out, so water moves in and out at the same rate, and the cell stays happy and normal. But then, there's the hypotonic solution, like pure water. Now, the real party is inside the cell, so water rushes in, causing an animal cell, like a red blood cell, to swell up and literally burst. A plant cell, though, it just gets nice and firm. And that right there is the million-dollar question, isn't it? An animal cell just explodes under all that pressure, but the plant cell holds its ground. How? What gives it that incredible superpower? It's all thanks to the cell wall. You can think of it as this super rigid outer structure. It's like the club's fire code inspector. It allows the cell to swell up and get really full and firm, but it provides a strong counter pressure that physically stops it from taking on too much water and bursting. Basically, it keeps the party from getting dangerously out of control. Now, you might be thinking this is all just, microscopic biology stuff, but I promise you, these principles of osmosis are happening all around you, probably even in your own kitchen right now. Oh yeah, you have absolutely seen this in action. Every time you preserve fruits in sugar or pickle cucumbers in a salty brine, what you're really doing is creating a hypertonic environment. You're pulling all the water out of the cells, which is what preserves them and makes them crisp. And hey, why do you think hospital IV drips use a saline solution? Because it's isotonic. It perfectly matches the concentration of your blood, keeping your red blood cells stable and safe. So from now on, the next time you salt a steak before cooking it or see a poor slug shrivel up on a salty sidewalk, you'll know exactly what's going on. The cells bouncer is just following the rules of the club, and water is always going to follow the biggest party. So the real question is, now that you know the rules, where else in your life can you spot this secret lesson in osmosis?